Rejected bride sold for cheap. Then a kind cowboy vowed to make her the richest woman in town. Eliza had always been different from the other girls in her town. She wasn't known for her beauty or charm, and she certainly didn't come from a wealthy family. Her parents worked hard just to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. Her father was a quiet man who spent most of his time fixing tools and working in the fields, while her mother stitched clothes for neighbors and cleaned houses to earn a little extra money. Eliza often helped her mother, though she secretly dreamed of a life beyond hard work and worry. She loved reading whatever books she could find, imagining worlds far away from the dusty streets of her small town where people whispered too much and judged too quickly. From the time she was a little girl, Eliza noticed that people looked at her differently. Not in a mean way at first, but with indifference. At school, the other children didn't invite her to play much. At church, she often sat alone watching families laugh together. She tried to smile, she tried to be friendly, but it seemed that no one really noticed her. As she grew older, she learned to accept the quiet life she had, even though deep inside she longed for love, respect, and a chance to prove herself. When Eliza turned 18, her parents began talking about marriage. In her town, families often arranged matches quickly. A girl's worth, in the eyes of many, was measured not by her kindness or intelligence, but by her family's wealth, her dowry, and her appearance. Eliza's family had very little to offer. They had a small home, a few cows, and a tiny plot of land that barely grew enough vegetables to feed them. Her dowry was modest, far less than what most families demanded. This made many suitors walk away, and some even laughed when the idea of marrying Eliza was mentioned. Eliza tried to hide her sadness, but it was impossible to ignore. She could feel the disappointment in her parents' eyes, though they never said it aloud. "We just want what's best for you," her mother said one evening, but the words felt heavy, like a gentle push toward something she wasn't ready to face. Her father, who rarely spoke of feelings, gave her a small nod and a sad smile as if to say, "We know it's hard, but life is hard for all of us." Time passed and more of her peers found husbands and started families. Eliza watched from the sidelines as her friends celebrated engagements, laughed at wedding parties, and moved into comfortable homes. Each time her heart ached a little more. She wondered if she would ever experience love or happiness, or if she was destined to be invisible forever. Then one day, a distant relative came to visit. He was a man who dealt with arranging marriages in nearby towns, someone who knew families and could set up matches. When he met Eliza, he barely looked at her. He spoke with her parents about a young man from another town who wanted a wife, a man who was looking for someone humble and obedient. The price, however, was shockingly low. Eliza's parents hesitated, knowing it was far below what other girls received, but they were tired of waiting, tired of the shame of having a daughter still unmarried at 18. Eliza overheard the conversation. Her stomach twisted. "Sold!" she whispered to herself. She had heard stories of girls being married off for arrangements, but never imagined it could feel like she was being sold, like an object rather than a person. She wanted to protest, to refuse, but the words stuck in her throat. Her parents were quiet but firm. "It is for your future," her father said finally. "You will have a home, a roof, and someone to care for you." The days that followed were some of the hardest in Eliza's life. She had to meet the man who was to be her husband, and though he was polite, he showed no excitement in meeting her. He saw her as a necessity, a transaction, rather than a person he wanted to know. The town whispered too. Children who once ignored her now stared, adults shook their heads, and neighbors made quiet remarks. Even though no one said anything cruel directly, Eliza felt the sting of judgment every time she walked past someone's window or heard laughter in the street. Despite everything, Eliza tried to hold on to her dignity. She reminded herself that she had to be strong, that she had no choice but to accept her situation. Each morning she woke up early, helped her mother cook and clean, and prayed for courage. She imagined that perhaps someday something good could happen, but for now she would endure. She wore a brave face, but inside loneliness settled like a heavy stone in her chest. Eliza also noticed that people around her treated her differently. At first, she thought she had imagined it, but then she realized how differently the town spoke to her. They pitied her, though no one said so outright. Some even seemed amused at her misfortune. Every time she entered a store or walked down the street, she felt invisible and small, as if her dreams, thoughts, and feelings didn't matter. She had been a part of the town her whole life, yet now it felt like she was on the outside, looking in. Even with all this, Eliza found small ways to escape. She walked in the fields behind her house, watched the sunset, and let her mind wander. She read old books she borrowed from neighbors or found secondhand. In those moments, she could imagine a life where she was seen for who she really was, where people valued her for her kindness, her intelligence, and her determination. These daydreams were her solace, a tiny spark of hope that refused to die, even in the darkest times. Her family tried to comfort her, though they struggled to understand the depth of her sadness. Her mother told her stories about other women who had married young, who had faced challenges, and had found happiness later. Her father shared quiet advice about patience and perseverance, though his words were few. Eliza clung to these moments, though they often left her feeling even more aware of the emptiness around her. The day of the arrangement finally arrived. Eliza dressed in the simplest gown her mother had sewn, her hair neatly combed, and her hands folded in her lap. She felt like a bird trapped in a cage, waiting to be moved wherever someone decided. She said nothing, fearing that protest would only make matters worse. Her heart beat fast, but not with excitement, only with fear and uncertainty. When she met the man she was to marry, he greeted her politely, but without warmth. They spoke few words. He asked basic questions about her family and skills, and she answered quietly. She tried not to let her voice shake. Every polite nod or smile from him reminded her that she was being judged, examined, and evaluated. It felt cold and transactional, as if her value was measured only in what she could bring, not in who she was. As the meeting ended, Eliza walked home with her parents in silence. The sun was setting, painting the sky in orange and pink, but she could not feel the beauty. Her mind was filled with anxiety and dread. She wondered what life would be like in the home she was expected to go to. Would she be respected? Would she be loved, or would she remain invisible, a shadow in someone else's life? That night she lay awake in her small bed, staring at the ceiling. The soft sounds of her family sleeping around her were a reminder of both comfort and confinement. She thought about her dreams, the books she had read, the stories she had imagined for herself, and a tear fell silently down her cheek. She did not cry out loud for fear of adding more worry to her family, but inside her heart ached. She had not asked for this life, and yet she had no choice but to accept it. Days turned into weeks as preparations for her departure continued. The townsfolk watched quietly, some offering polite congratulations, others whispering behind hands. Eliza learned to walk with her head held high, even when her heart felt heavy. She practiced small smiles, careful gestures, and polite words. She learned to mask her pain with calmness, though every night the solitude returned with its heavy presence. Through it all, Eliza held on to one thought. Perhaps one day she would find someone who would see her as more than a transaction, someone who would value her for her heart and her courage.
Even in her darkest moments, this tiny spark of hope refused to die.
She didn't know when or how it would happen, but she believed deep down that life had more to offer than what she had endured so far. Though Eliza's world was small and her circumstances harsh, her spirit remained unbroken. She was not bitter nor angry at those around her. She simply endured, quietly, holding on to the thought that perhaps, just perhaps, a new chapter was waiting for her. One where she would be seen, loved, and respected for exactly who she was. And for now, that thought, fragile and delicate as it was, became her lifeline. The town was quiet in the early morning as the sun began to rise over the dusty rooftops and fields beyond. Birds chirped softly, and the gentle wind rustled through the trees lining the streets. Eliza, as usual, was awake before anyone else. She helped her mother prepare breakfast, swept the small yard in front of their home, and checked on the few animals they owned. Her routine was simple and quiet, and though she did not complain, her heart still carried the weight of loneliness and uncertainty. It was during one of these mornings that Caleb arrived in town. He was a young cowboy, strong and hard-working, with a quiet confidence that made people take notice without them even realizing it. Caleb was not wealthy. He had no large ranch or fancy possessions. What he had was determination, honesty, and a heart willing to help those in need. His horse, sturdy and calm, carried him through the streets of the town as he looked around, taking in the surroundings with a careful eye. Caleb had come to the town for work, hearing of opportunities with the nearby ranchers, but he also had a natural curiosity about the people and their stories. The first time Caleb saw Eliza, she was walking along the narrow path that led to the market. She carried a small basket of vegetables to trade, her head bowed slightly as if she wished the earth would swallow her up. Caleb noticed the way people glanced at her with pity, the way some even whispered behind her back. Most might have ignored her, but Caleb saw something different. There was a quiet strength in her movements, a kind of dignity that no one else seemed to notice. He decided to introduce himself. At first, Eliza was wary. She had learned through years of being overlooked and judged that people's kindness often came with hidden motives. But there was something about Caleb that felt genuine. He smiled politely and asked about the vegetables she carried. His voice was calm, and he did not rush her as she answered. The small conversation was simple, almost ordinary, yet it marked the beginning of a connection that neither of them expected. Caleb soon realized how difficult life had been for Eliza. He noticed the small house she lived in, the meager possessions, and the way she carried herself with quiet endurance. He also noticed the sadness in her eyes, a depth that spoke of experiences few people in the town had endured. Caleb did not judge her for her past or her situation. Instead, he admired her patience, her strength, and the way she kept moving forward despite the hardships. He began visiting her occasionally, offering help with small tasks such as fixing a broken gate, carrying heavy water buckets, or helping with chores. At first, Eliza was cautious. She did not want to appear desperate or too eager for companionship. But Caleb was persistent in a gentle way, never pushing her beyond her comfort. Slowly, trust began to grow between them. Eliza found herself looking forward to Caleb's visits. They would talk about simple things, the weather, the market, the animals, but there was an underlying warmth in their conversations. Caleb would listen patiently as Eliza spoke about her dreams, the books she had read, and the worlds she had imagined beyond the town. He encouraged her to share her thoughts and ideas, treating them with respect and genuine interest. For the first time in years, Eliza felt truly seen and valued. The town, of course, noticed their growing friendship. Some of the neighbors whispered, speculated, and even criticized. But Caleb paid no attention. He understood the importance of character and integrity far more than what the town thought. He respected Eliza's pace, never rushing her to feel or act a certain way. He knew that trust and respect could not be forced. They had to be earned, nurtured, and allowed to grow naturally. One afternoon, while helping Eliza repair a fence, Caleb noticed how careful she was with her hands, how precise and patient she had become despite years of hard work. He commented on her skill, and she blushed slightly, unused to receiving compliments. "I've watched you work before," Caleb said simply. "You're good at what you do, Eliza. Better than most people I know." Her heart fluttered at his words. For the first time, she felt that someone recognized her abilities, not just her misfortunes. Caleb also shared some of his own story with her. He had grown up on a small ranch, learning the value of hard work and honesty from a young age. He had faced struggles too and knew what it felt like to start with nothing and fight for every little thing. His stories were not grand or boastful. They were humble and real, and they created a bridge between their hearts. Eliza found comfort in knowing that she was not alone in her struggles, that someone else understood the value of perseverance and hope. As weeks passed, Caleb's presence became a steady source of comfort for Eliza. She began to smile more freely, laugh more often, and even share little joys she had kept hidden. They would walk together through the fields, watch sunsets, and dream about possibilities. Caleb never promised the world, but his kindness and patience spoke volumes. He treated Eliza as an equal, with respect and admiration, never seeing her as a burden or a transaction. One day, while walking near the edge of the town, Caleb stopped and looked at her seriously. "Eliza," he said, "I know life hasn't been fair to you. I know people have treated you as if your worth is small. But I want you to know that I see you. I see your strength, your kindness, and your heart. You deserve more than this town has given you, and I'll help you, if you'll let me." Eliza was silent for a moment. The sincerity in his eyes was undeniable. She wanted to believe him, wanted to hope, but fear still lingered. "Why would you care?" she asked softly. "I'm not beautiful, not rich. I'm nothing special." Caleb shook his head gently. "That's not true. You are special, Eliza. And being rich or beautiful doesn't make someone valuable. What matters is your heart, your courage, and the way you face life. I want to be someone who helps you see what you're capable of. If you'll let me, we can make your life better together."
Eliza felt a warmth spread through her chest, something she hadn't felt in years.
It wasn't just hope, it was trust, slowly growing, like a small plant breaking through hard soil. She nodded, unsure how to put her feelings into words, but knowing deep down that Caleb's intentions were genuine. For the first time, she felt that life might offer her more than hardship and rejection. From that day on, Caleb became more than a friend. He became a partner in her journey, though neither of them fully realized how far it would take them. He continued to help her with practical tasks, and they began planning ways to improve her life. Caleb encouraged Eliza to try small ventures, selling her homemade goods at the market, helping neighbors with chores, and using her skills in ways that could earn her respect and independence. Each success, no matter how small, built her confidence. She realized that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. The townspeople began to notice the change in Eliza. The quiet, timid girl who had once been overlooked was now speaking confidently, smiling genuinely, and handling tasks with skill and precision. While some still whispered and doubted, many others began to admire her. People started coming to her for advice, for help, and for her homemade goods. Caleb watched proudly as Eliza grew into herself, never pushing too hard, always encouraging, and always standing by her side. Eliza also learned from Caleb how to see opportunities where others saw obstacles. He taught her the value of hard work, patience, and persistence. Together they dreamed of a future where she could live without fear of judgment, where she could be respected and valued. For Eliza, it was more than just material success. It was a chance to reclaim her dignity and her sense of self-worth. Despite the slow progress, there were challenges. Some townspeople still doubted them, spreading rumors or trying to undermine their efforts. But Caleb taught Eliza to face these challenges with courage, to ignore negativity, and to focus on what truly mattered. He reminded her that life was not about pleasing everyone, but about staying true to oneself and working diligently toward goals. Over time, the bond between Caleb and Eliza deepened. It was not a love born from grand gestures or dramatic confessions, but from respect, trust, and shared purpose. They laughed together, supported each other through setbacks, and celebrated every small victory. Eliza found herself feeling safe, valued, and understood in a way she had never experienced before. Caleb, in turn, admired her resilience, her intelligence, and her gentle strength. Their partnership began to transform not only Eliza's life, but also the way the town viewed her. People slowly started to change their opinions, realizing that the girl they had once dismissed was capable, intelligent, and determined. Though some resistance remained, Eliza's reputation was no longer defined by pity or judgment. She was becoming a woman of substance, someone who could stand on her own and achieve great things. Through it all, Caleb never asked for anything in return. His only goal was to help Eliza realize her potential and find happiness. He was patient, understanding that true change takes time and consistent effort. Eliza, inspired by his kindness and guidance, began to believe that a better life was possible, a life where she was respected, valued, and perhaps even loved in the way she had always hoped. As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, Eliza's world began to shift. She could feel the transformation happening, not in grand, obvious ways, but in quiet moments. The pride in her own accomplishments, the confidence in her voice, the gentle smile that now came more easily. Caleb had shown her that life could be different, that kindness and hard work could open doors that had once seemed forever closed. And though she had suffered rejection, loneliness, and hardship, Eliza now had a reason to hope. She had a friend, a guide, and a supporter in Caleb, someone who saw her true worth and believed in her. For the first time, the rejected girl of the town could imagine a life filled not with fear and judgment, but with possibility, respect, and the quiet promise of happiness. Life began to change for Eliza in ways she had never imagined. With Caleb by her side, the days that had once been quiet and lonely became filled with purpose, hope, and small victories. They started with the simplest things, using the little resources she had at home. Eliza had always been skilled with her hands. She could sew, bake, and craft simple goods that people in the town would buy if given the chance. Caleb encouraged her to try selling her products at the local market, assuring her that her talents could be appreciated if she gave them the opportunity. At first, Eliza felt nervous. She had spent so many years being ignored or judged that she feared rejection at every turn. "What if no one wants to buy anything?" she asked one morning, holding a small basket of neatly sewn cloths. Caleb smiled at her reassuringly. "Then we'll try again tomorrow," he said simply. "One step at a time. Don't let fear stop you from showing the world what you can do."
With his encouragement, Eliza took her first steps into a new life.
She went to the market, standing at a small wooden stall Caleb had built for her, and arranged her goods carefully. People passed by, some curious, some indifferent. At first, she didn't sell much. A few coins changed hands, but it was enough to ignite a small spark of hope. Caleb stayed nearby, helping her carry heavier items, arranging the stall and quietly cheering her on without drawing attention. Day by day, Eliza began to grow more confident. She learned to greet customers with a friendly smile, to explain her products clearly, and even to bargain when necessary. Caleb continued to guide her, showing her small tips for improving sales, but never taking over. The sense of independence and accomplishment thrilled Eliza. She had never felt so proud of herself, so capable of shaping her own life. Their efforts extended beyond the market. Caleb helped Eliza improve the small garden behind her home, planting vegetables and herbs that could be sold or used to cook meals for the neighbors. He showed her how to care for a few cows they had, teaching her to milk them properly and take care of their health. Eliza soaked up every lesson, her determination shining through. Every day she grew stronger, more skilled, and more confident. Soon, word began to spread about the quiet, diligent girl who was making her own way in the world. The same neighbors who had once whispered about her misfortune now came to see her stall at the market, curious about what she could do. Some offered advice, others purchased her goods, and a few even asked for help with tasks around their own homes. Eliza realized that she could make a real difference, not just for herself, but for the people around her. Caleb also taught her the importance of planning and saving. He helped her keep a small notebook where they recorded every coin earned and spent. Eliza learned how to budget, how to prioritize, and how to set goals for the future. It was a slow process, but it gave her a sense of control she had never known. For the first time, she could see a path forward, a way to build a life that was truly her own. As the months passed, their little projects began to grow. Eliza expanded her range of products, sewing more intricate cloths and offering small household items she could make by hand. Caleb suggested branching out into other trades, and together they experimented with simple furniture made from wood Caleb had salvaged from old barns. The town responded positively. People appreciated the quality and care put into her work, and slowly, Eliza began to earn more than she had ever imagined possible. It wasn't just about money, though. With each small success, Eliza gained confidence and pride. She discovered that she was capable of more than she had believed. The girl who had been rejected, overlooked, and underestimated was now respected for her skill, determination, and perseverance. Caleb watched her transformation with quiet pride. He knew that her success was not just about his guidance, but about her heart, her courage, and her unwillingness to give up. Of course, there were challenges along the way. Not every day was easy. Some customers were harsh or critical, and a few people still doubted her abilities. Sometimes, weather ruined her small crops or a batch of goods did not sell, but Caleb taught her how to face setbacks with patience. "Every mistake is a lesson," he told her. "Every failure is just a step closer to success. Don't let one bad day make you forget all the progress you've made." Eliza learned to pick herself up each time, stronger and more determined than before. Through this process, Caleb and Eliza grew closer. Their relationship was built on trust, respect, and shared goals rather than grand gestures or dramatic declarations. They worked together, laughed together, and supported each other through setbacks. Eliza began to feel a warmth in her heart she had never known. It wasn't just hope for the future. It was the joy of having someone who believed in her, someone who saw her true worth. As her small business grew, Eliza also became more involved in the community. She helped neighbors with their chores, offered advice to young women who wanted to learn skills like sewing or gardening, and shared what she had learned about budgeting and planning. People began to look up to her. The girl who had once been invisible was now someone others admired and respected. She was a quiet leader in her own way, a symbol of determination and kindness. Caleb continued to guide her, but he also gave her space to make decisions on her own. He never took credit for her successes, knowing that her growth and achievements were entirely her own. "You're the one who's working hard," he said one day as they sat watching the sunset over the fields. "I'm just here to help. But all of this, it's because of you, Eliza. You have the heart and mind to do anything you set your mind to." Eliza smiled, feeling a sense of pride and gratitude. She realized that her life had changed not just because of Caleb's guidance, but because she had taken the courage to act, to step into the world, and to show her true self. The years of rejection and loneliness had not been wasted. They had taught her patience, resilience, and the value of hard work. She had learned to believe in herself, and that belief was now her greatest strength. One day, a wealthy merchant came to the market and noticed Eliza's stall. Impressed by the quality of her work and her professionalism, he offered her a deal to supply goods for his store. This was a turning point. With Caleb's help, Eliza expanded her operations, producing more items and hiring a few local women to assist her. She shared her knowledge generously, teaching them the same skills Caleb had helped her develop. Her small business began to flourish, and her reputation grew beyond the town. Eliza also learned the value of innovation. Caleb encouraged her to think creatively, to find ways to improve her products and services. They experimented with new designs, better materials, and clever marketing techniques. Each success reinforced her confidence and inspired others in the town to follow her example. Slowly but surely, Eliza became a respected entrepreneur, admired not only for her skills but for her determination, honesty, and generosity. As the years passed, the girl who had been sold for a fraction of her worth began to feel a sense of pride she had never known. She had a thriving business, a home she could be proud of, and a partner who respected and valued her. But more importantly, she had reclaimed her dignity. She had proven to herself and the town that she was capable, strong, and deserving of respect and love. Caleb and Eliza's partnership remained humble and grounded. They did not seek wealth for the sake of showing off or gaining attention. Their goal was to build a life where they could be independent, respected, and happy. And in doing so, they inspired others around them. Young women in the town began to see that it was possible to rise above rejection and hardship, to work hard, and to create opportunities for themselves. Through patience, perseverance, and kindness, Eliza's life had transformed. She was no longer the quiet, overlooked girl who had once felt invisible. She was now a woman of confidence, skill, and respect, capable of achieving whatever she set her mind to. And though she had faced countless obstacles, she had done so with grace, courage, and the unwavering support of a true friend and partner in Caleb. Together they had begun the journey of building not just wealth, but a life filled with purpose, pride, and hope. And this was only the beginning. The foundation they were laying now would allow Eliza to reach heights she had never dreamed of, proving that even the most rejected and overlooked person could become a beacon of success, respect, and inspiration. Years passed, and Eliza's life transformed in ways she could never have imagined when she was the quiet, rejected girl of the town. Her small business, which had begun as a humble stall with a few handmade goods, had grown into something far bigger. She had learned from Caleb the value of perseverance, planning, and hard work, and together they had built a foundation that allowed her to flourish. What had started as simple sewing and small market sales had expanded into multiple ventures, each contributing to her growing wealth and reputation. Eliza had not only continued her original crafts but had diversified into other trades. she learned to manage a small ranch, raising livestock and growing crops that she could sell to local merchants. Caleb taught her how to negotiate, handle buyers, and keep detailed records of income and expenses. With her natural intelligence, patience, and determination, Eliza became skilled at running a business, learning to make decisions quickly and wisely. She gained the confidence to take calculated risks, trying new ideas that would increase her profits and improve her reputation in town. At the same time, Caleb remained by her side, a constant source of support and guidance. He never demanded credit for her achievements, knowing that Eliza had the courage and intelligence to succeed on her own. Yet his presence was invaluable. He offered practical advice, helped with the physical work that came with expanding the ranch and businesses, and provided moral support during difficult days. Their bond had deepened over time, rooted in mutual respect, trust, and shared goals. They had become true partners in every sense, both in business and in life. The townspeople who had once dismissed Eliza as insignificant began to take notice. People who had whispered and judged her now spoke of her with admiration. They came to her for advice, to purchase her goods, and sometimes simply to learn how she had managed to rise from her humble beginnings. Young women in particular were inspired by her story. Eliza shared her knowledge generously, teaching them skills like sewing, gardening, and business management. She encouraged them to believe in themselves, reminding them that no one's worth could be measured by wealth or appearance alone. With her growing wealth and respect, Eliza also invested in improving her home and her community. She repaired the small house she had grown up in, turning it into a comfortable and welcoming place. She planted gardens that not only provided food for her family and business, but also created a beautiful space where people could gather. She contributed to local projects, helping to build small wells, repair streets, and provide supplies to families in need. Her generosity and practical contributions earned her a reputation as a kind and thoughtful leader, someone who did not forget her roots despite her success. Eliza's businesses continued to expand. She opened a small workshop where she employed several local women, teaching them skills and giving them a chance to earn a living. She created a small store that sold her handmade goods, fresh produce, and other items she produced or traded. She also partnered with local ranchers and merchants, supplying them with high-quality products. Caleb helped manage the logistics and ensured everything ran smoothly, but Eliza remained the driving force behind every decision. She became known as a woman of intelligence, skill, and vision, admired for her ability to balance multiple ventures successfully. Her wealth was not measured only in money. It was measured in respect, trust, and influence. Eliza had earned a place of honor in the town. People sought her guidance and valued her opinion. She had become a role model not because she had wealth, but because she had demonstrated courage, perseverance, and kindness. The same people who had once laughed at her now listened carefully to her words, recognizing her wisdom and the experience she had gained through years of struggle and determination. Caleb and Eliza also grew closer as partners and companions. Their friendship, built on trust and mutual respect, gradually blossomed into love, yet their relationship was never rushed or forced. They had learned the importance of patience and understanding. Every shared sunrise over the fields, every long day of work side by side, and every small success they celebrated together deepened their connection. They had both witnessed the other's struggles and strengths, and this knowledge created a bond stronger than any fleeting affection. Eliza's transformation was also personal. She no longer carried the sadness, fear, or self-doubt that had once defined her. She moved through the town with confidence and dignity. She smiled freely, laughed often, and engaged with people warmly. She no longer worried about what others thought of her, knowing that her worth was determined by her character, her actions, and her courage. The girl who had once been sold for a fraction of her value had become a woman of substance, respected by everyone around her. Despite her success, Eliza remained humble. She never flaunted her wealth or achievements. She understood the struggles of ordinary people and remembered her own past. She treated everyone with kindness and respect, whether they were a wealthy merchant or a neighbor with little to offer. Her reputation for fairness, generosity, and integrity became as important as her business accomplishments. People trusted her, knowing that she would act wisely and compassionately in every situation. Caleb's support continued to be unwavering. He had not only helped her build her businesses, but had also supported her emotionally and morally. He celebrated her victories, comforted her during setbacks, and stood beside her as an equal. Their love was quiet but strong, built on shared experiences, mutual admiration, and deep understanding. Together, they were a team, capable of achieving anything they set their minds to. Eliza also found joy in helping others. She offered guidance to young women who had faced rejection or hardship, teaching them skills that could improve their lives. She encouraged them to be patient, to work hard, and to believe in themselves. Many of them began to succeed, inspired by her example. Eliza's influence extended beyond her businesses. She had become a mentor, a leader, and a source of hope for those around her. Her reputation even spread beyond the town. Traders from nearby villages came to purchase her goods, and merchants sought partnerships with her for their businesses. She became known for the quality of her products, her fairness in trade, and her integrity. Her wealth grew steadily, but it was never her only goal. She valued independence, respect, and the ability to make a positive impact on her community above all else. As her success continued, Eliza began to consider larger projects. She invested in education for girls, helping them learn skills that would allow them to support themselves. She funded improvements to the local marketplace and worked to provide resources for struggling families. Her wealth gave her the ability to make meaningful changes, and she used it wisely, never forgetting the hardships she had faced as a young girl. Over time, Eliza and Caleb built a life that many would admire. They had a beautiful home surrounded by gardens, a thriving ranch, and successful businesses. They had earned the respect and admiration of the town, not just because of their wealth, but because of their character, hard work, and generosity. People came to them for advice, guidance, and inspiration. Young women especially looked up to Eliza as a symbol of resilience and hope. Eliza often reflected on her journey. She remembered the days when she had been rejected, sold for a small price, and overlooked by everyone. She remembered the loneliness, the fear, and the sadness that had once filled her heart. But she also remembered the moments when Caleb had offered support, when she had taken small steps toward independence, and when she had learned to believe in herself. Every challenge, every setback, and every small victory had shaped her into the woman she had become. Through it all, Eliza's life had become a testament to perseverance, courage, and kindness. She had taken the pain of rejection and transformed it into motivation. She had turned her weaknesses into strengths and her struggles into opportunities. And in doing so, she had created not only a life of wealth and success, but a life filled with meaning, purpose, and joy. Caleb remained her partner in every sense. Their relationship was built on mutual respect, trust, and deep love. They had faced challenges together, celebrated victories together, and grown stronger as a team. Caleb's belief in her had never wavered, and Eliza's confidence and skill had flourished with his support. Together they had created a life that neither of them could have imagined alone. Eliza's story became known throughout the region. People told of the girl who had been rejected and sold for a small price but had risen to become the wealthiest and most respected woman in town. They spoke of her kindness, her skill, her courage, and her generosity. Her life became a symbol of hope for anyone who had faced rejection or hardship, showing that it was possible to overcome obstacles, build a new life, and achieve success and respect through hard work, perseverance, and integrity. In the end, Eliza's greatest achievement was not her wealth, but her transformation. She had grown from a lonely, rejected girl into a confident, respected, and admired woman. She had built a life filled with dignity, purpose, and love. She had inspired others to believe in themselves, work hard, and never give up. And she had done it all with the quiet support of a kind and devoted partner, Caleb, who had believed in her from the very beginning. Eliza often looked back on her early life with a sense of gratitude, not for the hardships themselves, but for the lessons they had taught her. She knew that without those struggles, she might not have developed the strength, resilience, and wisdom that had allowed her to succeed. And she also knew that the kindness, guidance, and love she had received from Caleb had been the turning point that made all the difference. Together, Eliza and Caleb continued to build their lives, always working, always learning, and always supporting one another. Their story was one of hope, determination, and the power of believing in oneself and others. Eliza, the girl once rejected and overlooked, had become a woman of extraordinary accomplishment and respect, showing that even the hardest beginnings could lead to the brightest futures. And so, the girl who had once been sold for a small price became not only the richest woman in the town but also its most respected, admired, and beloved member. Her journey showed that kindness, perseverance, and courage could change a life, that support from the right person could create opportunities, and that no one's worth was ever truly measured by the opinions of others.